I'm Abrielle Millett for BYU-Idaho Radio, and today I'm on the phone with Chloe Doucette, and she's a lead for the Juneteenth event that's happening at Colonial Theater on Friday. And she's going to tell us a little bit more about what's going on and what they're doing to celebrate it. But before we begin on that, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role in this event?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Chloe, and I am an organizer for this Juneteenth celebration that's been happening in Idaho Falls for the past 3 years. And so this is our third year, and we're hopefully getting a little bit bigger and a little bit better every year. My professional career is at the Museum of Idaho. I'm the managing director there. And so our hope for this event was to be able to help everybody understand why Juneteenth is a federal holiday, because it's got obviously a really interesting history, but it is now a holiday that everyone celebrates and is, like a national holiday that's recognized, by banks and all that stuff too. And then also to be able to celebrate our own community's heritage and just talk a little bit about how we as a community, like the different stories and different backgrounds that create sort of the interesting fabric of who we are in East Idaho.
Yeah, and that's amazing because it's only been in the past, recent years that it's been a national holiday, something recognized that, like you said, is celebrated by everyone and nationally recognized. And that's super exciting. This is your guys' third year putting this on, this annual celebration. And it's kind of, like you said, it's about the history and significance of Juneteenth, and it's through music and storytelling. So can you tell me a little bit what are we going to expect to see in that case?
Yeah, so I think, exactly what you said is right. It's only been a federal holiday since 2021. And so we as Americans have a lot of context, I think, for holidays like the 4th of July and, even Labor Day and Memorial Day and things like that. But where this is a new federal holiday, obviously something that's been celebrated for much longer than that, but not nationally. We thought that there was a real opportunity to give people the chance to understand why Juneteenth is something that we can all be proud of as a federal holiday for everyone that's an American. And so when you come, we have the event from starting at 7 p.m. at the Colonial Theater, and we'll have jazz music and some symphony music. There'll be sort of like a guide that will take you through the story of how music intertwines so well with the reason behind Juneteenth as a holiday. There's also a readers theater that myself and Jim Francis wrote, and that'll be performed by some really talented students from our area who will just help to give you sort of a historical rundown of Juneteenth. And it'll just be an incredible evening, I think, where everyone will get to learn a little bit more about this holiday and a little bit more about, just how we all can celebrate it.
Yeah, and when I was looking at the press release for it, it talked about, kind of like you said, there'll be a musical guide. I think it was Carrie Athy.
Yeah. She's the director of the Idaho Falls Symphony, and she is super knowledgeable on both the fields of history and music. And so she's sort of the perfect one to be able to talk a little bit more about how this connection makes sense. And the organization that sort of has been working on this project for the last 3 years partnered with the Eastern Idaho Jazz Society, which is a local nonprofit, to be able to bring this celebration to our community. And it's been so fun to be able to work that music history into this story, because I think there's really nothing that is as good of a uniter for people, than music. Like it makes you feel things. And I think that's a really good aspect of this program.
Yeah, and it's definitely something, like you said, it's a connector. It's very powerful. Is there going to be, because you said that she's very knowledgeable on the history and the music. Is there going to be a lot of in between the songs, or the symphony kind of an explanation of like the history behind it?
Yeah, so it'll be like an incredible experience, I think, if you're interested in symphony music, but also even if you're just sort of a casual enjoyer of music, because there are several pieces that the symphony and the Jazz Society will play, and basically they're going to go back and forth. And so Carrie is going to take just maybe about 2 minutes as an introduction to each of the songs and say, "Hey, I want you to listen for this sort of thing." And if people are not aware too, I'll give you just a little more background. So Juneteenth is a holiday that is celebrating the official end to slavery, and what the reason why that happens in on Juneteenth as opposed to when Lincoln gave his Emancipation Proclamation is you'll learn more about at the event. But basically, Lincoln said that as the Union Army advances into Confederate states, they will make sure that slavery no longer exists in those places. So it took 2.5 years from that Emancipation Proclamation until when slaves were freed in Galveston, Texas, which was kind of the furthest western reach of the Confederate sort of controlled area where, really of where slavery was still being used as an economic process. And so because it took a full 2.5 years, you can imagine like all of the sort of pain and suffering that went along with that extension of slavery for those 2.5 years until people were freed all the way in Galveston, Texas, as that Union Army advanced. And so in this musical experience, you're going to get to sort of hear some of that emotion. You're going to be able to understand a little bit more about how especially Black composers are, essential to the understanding of American music as a whole. And I think we kind of understand that maybe in the jazz world and especially in the blues world a little bit more than we might understand that in the symphonic world. And so it's going to be a really interesting and fun look to see and highlight some of those stories and some of those composers that have really brought forth those kinds of emotions, those kinds of stories in their compositions.
Yeah, that's beautifully said, because like you said, people will probably be more familiar with the jazz world and that influence of African Americans and their experience, but probably not as much in, like you said, the symphonic world. And you can't really tell the American story without all the people in America of all colors and all their experiences here.
Yeah, and I think, that's kind of the beautiful thing too, is that, we as a community obviously celebrate something like the 4th of July, which is obviously our independence as a country, but really which is celebrating the actual writing of the Declaration of Independence, right? That's the date that's on that declaration. And so in that declaration, it lays out these ideals, these incredible ideals that we all want to live up to, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, right? And this celebration of Juneteenth is just an extension of that, right? Our founders, people like Thomas Jefferson, Hamilton, Washington, they wrote these documents, the Declaration of Independence in particular, as sort of a framework for us to understand as a country that we are striving towards these ideals. There's this American exceptionalism that we all should be reaching towards to be just better and better all the time. And so being able to celebrate Juneteenth, which is really just an extension of those incredibly American rights to all Americans, is something that I think should be celebrated, obviously not just by people in the Black community, but also by every American, because that is what we are here to do, right? Bring life, liberty, pursuit of happiness to every single person that is a part of American society and beyond the world.
Yeah, that's so true. It's an extension of our independence and the holiday that we already celebrate on the 4th of July. That freedom for everyone in our country. And so it's those ideals that were started, like you said, with the founding forefathers that has, continued, and something that's worth celebrating, like you said. For the readers' theaters aspect of that, you said these pieces were written by you, and you said Jim? Forgetting the last name.
Jim Francis. So Jim Francis is a name that many might recognize in this area. I know him because he was an incredible history teacher that taught at Idaho Falls High School for most of his career. But he also serves in city government now. But Jim has volunteered for the last 3 years, his skills just on a personal level, to be able to write this script. And Jim, his teaching style was always one that was incredibly inspiring to anybody who took his class. It was dramatic. There was storytelling. He taught history, but it didn't feel like you were learning from, you weren't learning from a book. You were understanding and like developing your critical thinking skills, and really like getting involved in the drama of what went on in the past. And so I think he applied sort of some of those skills, and then I, in my career now, and having some influence from Jim and other incredible educators from this area and beyond, sort of partnered up to make sure that we could present this history of Juneteenth in a way that is exciting and interesting to people. And obviously, the incredible students that we have performing this Readers Theater, they range in age from 9 years old to 17 years old. And they do such an amazing job of really being able to tell this story and, grasp some of the emotion again behind it, because it's not just a story that you tell, in sort of in a one note way. There's a lot of ups and downs, a lot of, sort of striving towards, this equality, this freedom, this understanding that takes place over a long period of time. And so the Readers Theater starts sort of by talking about slavery in America and that experience, and then it moves all the way through to the establishing of Juneteenth as a federal holiday in 2021. And so the Readers Theater itself is just a portion of the evening, because we have those musical performances as well. But it is about 30 minutes long. These students will do that presentation, and then we'll have additional time that is spent on music performance and that interpretation, and on some a little bit of additional historical background too.
Yeah, that's well said. I think it's something unique and fun to have a Readers Theater's retelling or historical telling, like you said, having those live voices of those, like you said, 9 to 17-year-olds telling this story is something that's going to really like bring to life this history and this celebration. So that's super exciting to have them to tell this story.
Yeah, I hope so. I think that it's amazing. I have a degree in history. Jim does too, and we've applied that in different ways. But I think one thing that we have in common, and I think probably every educator and every historian would say too, is that you learn a little bit from everyone that sort of participates in this. So these students, even though they're young people, I think we've all learned a lot from them in their interpretation of this script too. Just sort of like they're understanding their context for where they come from in their lives and their cultural backgrounds, and each of them have sort of brought that to their performing of this piece too, which is really special to see.
Yes, and this event is on Juneteenth, so on Friday at 7 p.m. Until 9, right?
That's correct. Friday, June 19th, 7 p.m. at the Colonial Theater, which is just, I think, 450 A Street, I believe is the address here in Idaho Falls, and totally free to the public. So we would love as many people to join us as would like.
Yeah, and the doors open at 6:30. People can start coming in.
Yep, 6:30 doors.
Okay, that's super exciting. Is there anything else you'd like to say on promoting this event or inviting people to attend this to celebrate on Friday?
Yeah, I think if you're interested at all to learn just a little bit more about why you might have the day off work. This is a great opportunity to do that, and we really hope that what we're giving people is just a little bit more of this understanding about why we can all be proud of this holiday. It's not something that is a holiday just for an individual group of people. It's for all of us as Americans. And I also think that it's a really great year to participate. Even if you've come before, come again. But it is, the 250th anniversary of our country, of the writing of that Declaration of Independence, and so people this year might be feeling, a little bit more patriotic even than they have in the past, and so getting to know a little bit more about your country's history, I think, is always something that is interesting. Like I said, I've learned things from these students. I've learned things from the other incredible people that are part of this. And I really can't wait to hear all of the music that is going to be performed as well by these incredible musicians. And we're grateful for all those partnerships that the community has supported us with.
I'm Abrielle Millett for BYU-Idaho Radio, and today I've been on the phone with Chloe Doucette, and she's been talking about the Juneteenth event that's happening at Colonial Theater. There's going to be a reader's theater, some musical aspects. It's going to be a free event worth attending, worth celebrating, and remembering our American history in all aspects. So thank you so much, Chloe, for talking to me today about this event. This will be an exciting thing happening this week. Thank you.
Thank you.